Jungkook and you had been married for years, yet visiting your parents' house was always nerve-wracking. Your mother adored Jungkook, your cousins were obsessed with his charm, but your father, well, he never outright said anything cruel, yet it was clear he hadn't fully accepted him as his son-in-law. And the reason was simple. He wanted you to marry the guy he chose for you, but you didn't listen to him because you were in love with your boyfriend, who is now your husband. You knew they love you too much that they will eventually accept him, but your father never did. It was the first time in years that you and Jungkook had returned home together. The atmosphere was lively, filled with the aroma of your mother's delicious home cooked meals and the chatter of your cousins. You never thought you would be back in this house again, not after the drama your marriage had caused, but here you were, standing in the doorway of your childhood home, your fingers intertwined with Jungkook's. The warmth of your mother's embrace and the excited chatter of your cousins made you feel like you had never left, but one glance at your father, who merely nodded at Jungkook instead of offering a handshake, reminded you that things were still complicated. Jungkook squeezed your hand slightly, reassuring you he had always been patient, always kind, even when your father refused to acknowledge him as his son in law. Come inside, it's been years, and you are standing at the door like guests. Your mother scolded playfully, pulling you both in. Jungkook chuckled and followed, his eyes lightening up as your little cousin Rosie ran up to him and clung to his leg. Jungkook Oppa, did you bring me chocolates? He bent down and lifted her effortlessly. Of course, princess. Would I ever forget? He handed her a small bag of imported chocolates. Your mother watched the scene with a fond smile, but your father cleared his throat, reminding everyone of his presence. The atmosphere shifted ever so slightly. Dinner is at 8. Make yourselves comfortable, he said, turning towards the living room. You looked at your mother, who smiled a little. Come inside, saying that she walked away. Jungkook leaned in and whispered, that wasn't so bad, at least he didn't throw me out. You giggled. Give it time, we just arrived. After dinner, the entire family gathered in the living room, exchanging stories and laughter. Your father was sitting at a distance, watching but rarely speaking. Jungkook, on the other hand, had easily won over your cousins, who were hanging on to his every word as he shared funny incidents from his life. And then, boom, the entire cake landed on my face. Jungkook finished his story, making everyone laugh. Your mother shook her head, amused. Rosie gasped, her little hands covering her mouth. No way, did you cry? Jungkook scoffed playfully. Cry? Me? Never. I stood there with cake dripping down my face and said, that's how you know it's a good party. The room erupted in laughter. Even your mother shook her head, laughing. Your father, however, remained stoic, his gaze fixed on Jungkook. Oppa, did you get revenge? Another cousin Ji-who asked eagerly. Jungkook leaned forward, his eyes glinting with mischief. Oh, absolutely. A few weeks later, I baked a cake for the same friend's birthday. And Rosie's eyes widened. And I swept the sugar with salt. No, oh yes. He spat it out immediately and I said, see, karma is real. Jiho fell onto the floor laughing. Rosie leaned into Jungkook's chest, giggling uncontrollably. Your mother covered her mouth, stifling a laugh. Honestly, Jungkook, I can't believe you were so naughty, your aunt teased. Jungkook's eyes twinkled. Hey, I have always been resourceful. He gave you a side glance and smirked. That's how I got your cousin to marry me. Your cheeks flushed instantly. Oh my god, Jungkook, stop. You sweated his arm, but he only chuckled. Wait, Jiho sat up, eyes shining with curiosity. How did you get her to marry you? Jungkook's smile softened, his hand found yours, intertwining your fingers. Simple, I just wore her down with love until she realized she couldn't live without me. A quiet laugh escaped from the corner of the room. Your father. Or maybe you just trapped her. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Even Jiho's smile faltered. You stiffened. His words were harsh. Jungkook, however, didn't even flinch. He let out a soft chuckle, rubbing the back of his neck. Ah, well, that's one way to look at it, but between you and me, sir, I would like to believe I just got really, really lucky. Jiho's mouth twitched. Your mother sighed, looking between Jungkook and your father nervously. Your father's jaw tightened, but Jungkook just smiled wider. Looking perfectly at ease, he stretched his legs out, his thumb grazing over your knuckles. And honestly, if this is a trap, I must have done a pretty good job, huh? She hasn't exactly tried to escape. Gius nodded. Damn, he's got a point. Rosie giggled. Oppa is too smooth. Your father's jaw tightened. Anyway, Jungkook stood, stretching lazily. It's getting late. We should all get some sleep. Your mother quickly stood up, agreeing as she noticed how your smile faded after what your father said. Actually, she tried her best that he accept you and Jungkook, but he won't listen to anyone. I have prepared your room. You guys should go and rest. Jungkook nodded and extended his hand for you to take. Shall we? He forced a slight smile before taking his hand and standing up. Good night, everyone. And you walked away with Jungkook while your mom looked at your dad a little angrily. You shouldn't have said that. Your dad stood up. I didn't say anything wrong. Oh, come on, Yobo. Can't you see how much he loves our Vian? She's happy. What else do you want? Why can't you accept them? Your father just looked at her before walking away while she sighed. Lock the door. Your dad might sneak in at midnight with a baseball bat. He joked, flopping onto the bed, but when you didn't laugh, he got a little worried. Hey, what happened? Why do you look sad? I'm sorry. You whispered, coming near him. Jungkook's hand slid to the small of your back. What for? He looked at your moist eyes. For how he treats you. He shouldn't. Jungkook cut you off with a soft smile. Hey, if a couple of insults is the price for being with you, I would say I'm getting a damn good deal. You exhaled shakily as your heart twisted painfully. Still. Jungkook's hand raised up your arm, tilting your chin until your eyes met his. Let him be mad, but I have figured him out. He's not that bad. He'll accept me soon, he said confidently. And if he doesn't? His lips sharpened. Then I guess I'll just have to keep proving him wrong. Your heart slammed against your ribs. Damn, how did he always manage to make you feel like you were the only person in the world? Now let's sleep. I want to be close to my wife. You giggled as he flipped you under him and started to kiss you all over, making you giggle. The next morning you woke up to the sound of birds chirping and the distant noise of your family moving about. Jungkook was still asleep, his hair messily falling over his forehead. Smiling, you ran your fingers through his soft locks before slipping out of bed to freshen up. Since you were very little when you left the house before going to boarding school, your room doesn't have an attached bathroom, so you have to use the family bathroom. As you stepped into the bathroom and turned on the shower, the last thing you expected was for Jungkook to suddenly slip inside behind you. Jungkook, what are you doing? You whispered, screamed, trying to push him away. Before you could protest further, he pulled you inside the shower with him, wrapping his arms tightly around your waist. Your giggles mixed with the sound of the running water as he nuzzled your neck, whispering sweet nothings. Showering with my wife, obviously. We are married, you know. Yes, but we are at my parents' house. You hissed, trying to wriggle out of his grip. Your mom and cousins adore me, and your dad already disapproves of me. So what's the worst that can happen? He teased, pressing a kiss to your wet shoulder. The worst that can happen is my dad barging in and seeing this. Jungkook chuckled, then we'll just have to be really quiet. Unfortunately, fate was not on your side. Just as Jungkook pulled you closer, a loud knock sounded on the bathroom door. Are you still in there? It was your father's voice. Your eyes widened in horror. Jungkook froze. Yeah, I'm almost done. You called out, hoping he would go away. I need to use the bathroom. Hurry up. Jungkook's mouth had busted with a smirk and you glared at him before pushing him away. Get out now. You whispered harshly. He sighed dramatically. Fine, but you owe me cuddles later. As he sneaked out, barely making a sound, he quickly rinsed off and stepped out, acting as normal as possible. When you finally opened the door, your father gave you a long look but said nothing, walking past you into the bathroom. Just as you thought you were safe, he muttered under his breath, "Tell your husband to wait for his turn next time." Your face burned as you rushed out of there, only to find Jungkook leaning against the wall, laughing silently. He knows. You groaned, covering your face in embarrassment. Jungkook pulled you into a hug, shaking with laughter. At least he didn't chase me out with a shotgun. I would say this visit is going great. And despite the embarrassment, you couldn't help but laugh too. Maybe this homecoming wouldn't be so bad after all. The rest of the evening was filled with teasing. Your cousins wiggled their eyebrows every time they looked at you, and even your mother sent you a knowing smile. Your father, on the other hand, coughed awkwardly when he heard the commotion, refusing to meet your gaze at dinner. As the days passed, you and Jungkook continued to enjoy the time at your family home. One evening, while you were helping your mother in the kitchen, you overheard Jungkook and your father talking on the porch. I may not be the man you wanted for her, but I love her with everything I have. I'll spend my life proving that to you. There was silence. Your mother exchanged a glance with you while your heart was pounded, waiting for your father's response. After what felt like forever, he sighed. I wanted her to marry the guy I chose for her, but now I realized I can't force her into something she has to spend her life with. And she chose you. As long as you keep her happy, that's all I ask. Tears welled up in your eyes. It wasn't a grand declaration of approval, but it was a start. Your mother smiled and hugged you as tears finally dropped from your eyes. I knew that only he could make his anger disappear. You hugged your mom. The night as you lay in bed beside Jungkook, you whispered, I think he's finally coming around. Jungkook pulled you close, pressing a soft kiss to your forehead. Good, because I plan to keep making him regret doubting me. You giggled, feeling happy, and drifted off to sleep in his arms. The following morning, you woke up to an unexpected sight, your father and Jungkook working together in the backyard. Jungkook held a wooden beam while your father hammered nails into it, fixing the fence. They weren't talking much, but there was a quiet understanding between them. It was the first time you had seen them work side by side. Jungkook adjusted his grip on the beam, squinting under the sunlight. I think it's leaning a little to the left. Your father grunted. It's fine. Jungkook tilted his head. No, seriously, it's off by like an inch. Your father stopped mid-swing and narrowed his eyes at the beam. You sure? Jungkook grinned. Positive. With a sigh, your father took a step back, eyeing the beam. After a long pause, he muttered, Damn, he's right. Jungkook's smile widened. I have a good eye. Your father hammered the nail with a sharp thunk and gave Jungkook a sideways glance. That confidence ever get you in trouble? Jungkook shrugged. Sometimes, but it usually works out in my favor. Your father's gaze sharpened. And marrying my daughter, that worked out in your favor? Jungkook's smile softened. Best decision I've ever made. Your father's hand stilled on the hammer. For a moment he just stared at Jungkook, then he scoffed under his breath. You don't give up, huh? Jungkook's eyes glinted. Not when it comes to her. Your father pressed his lips together, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed and handed Jungkook another nail. Hold it steady. Jungkook obeyed, steadying the beam as your father raised the hammer. You work hard? Your father asked suddenly. Jungkook's brows lifted at the unexpected question. I try to. Providing for her, that's not easy. Jungkook chuckled softly. I know. You think you can handle that responsibility? Jungkook's lips curved. I don't think. I know. Your father hammered the nail in, his grip tightening on the handle. Jungkook's tone softened. I would give her the whole world if I could. Your father didn't respond right away. He simply picked up another nail and passed it to Jungkook. Hold it straight. Jungkook's fingers brushed against your father's as he took it. Got it. Your father's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Not bad. Jungkook's brows lifted. What's not bad? Your grip. Your father hammered the nail in and straightened up. And your attitude, though you could use a little more humility. Jungkook laughed, brushing sawdust off his hands. I'll work on that. Your father gave him a long, measured look, then he nodded. We'll see. Jungkook grinned. Does that mean I'm growing on you? Your father's eyes narrowed. Don't push your luck. Jungkook smiled wider. Too late. Your father shook his head, but you didn't miss the slight upward tug at the corner of his lips. Later that evening, you caught your father watching Jungkook with a thoughtful expression. It was when Jungkook effortlessly lifted a heavy bag of rice from the kitchen counter and placed it on his shoulder to help your mother. He did it without being asked, without hesitation. Your father sighed, rubbing his forehead, but you saw a flicker of something else, acceptance. The final breakthrough came on the last night of your visit. Your father sat beside Jungkook at the dinner table and, in a rare moment of warmth, placed a piece of meat on his plate. It was a small gesture, but everyone at the table noticed. Jungkook, surprised, looked at you before turning back to your father. Thank you, sir. Your father didn't respond immediately, but after a moment he muttered, Take care of her, that's all that matters. Your heart swelled with emotion. It wasn't just approval, it was trust. Appa, thank you. Your dad looked at you and finally smiled. I'm proud of your choice. You found a gem. When he said that, you felt the happiest and the table filled with laughter and smiles. As you and Jungkook left the next morning, your father stood by the porch watching you both. Just as Jungkook was about to step into the car, your father called out, Jungkook? Jungkook turned around. Your father cleared his throat before speaking. You are a part of the family now. Don't forget that. A slow, genuine smile spread across Jungkook's face. I won't, thank you, sir. As you drove away, you couldn't help but squeeze Jungkook's hand, a happy tear slipping down your cheek. He had done it. He had won your father's approval, not with words, but with love, patience, and unwavering devotion. Jungkook kissed your hand and grinned. Told you I would make him regret doubting me. You laughed, leaning into him. With Jungkook by your side and your father's acceptance finally in place, everything felt complete.